Welcome to the Creative Community Podcast, presented by Destination Arate. I'm David.
And I'm Mark, and we're building a community of creatives who work together to achieve creative excellence. Today's guest is fine artist Ellie Wilson.
Ellie joins us today to talk about plein air painting and the role that it plays in her landscape process, and then also about sacred artwork and how her background in college and learning illustration plays a role in the sacred pieces that she produces as an oil painter. So, without further ado, here's our conversation with landscape oil painter Ellie Wilson.
My name is Ellie Wilson. I'm an oil landscape painter, and I have been doing landscape painting for about 7 years now. I got into landscape painting when I was at Brigham Young University in the illustration program there. I started doing art when I was really young and doing oil painting when I was 16, and then got into the illustration program at BYU and just worked my way through that program, doing a lot of different things and trying to decide which path I wanted to take. And then actually, like the end of my junior year, I started going plein air painting, which is just painting outside from life, with one of the other professors and some other students. And I was like, this is awesome. I love this so much. And then David Dibble, who you guys may know or not know, but he's a really amazing landscape painter who used to do more digital work for concept art for Blue Sky Studios. So he worked for Blue Sky, and he came to BYU as one of the professors when I was a junior and showed me some artwork from different landscape painters. And I was like, this is amazing. And one of them was Scott Christensen. I got an internship with Scott and spent 3 weeks learning from Scott Christensen, which was amazing. And came back, and all of my friends were like, wait, what happened to you over the summer? And I was like, I just went and decided to go landscape painting and painting from life all the time and just get outside and take this internship. And I just grew super fast and learned a lot, and just decided to not go back. And that's the path I decided to take, was just be a landscape painter. So now I've just been doing that since I graduated, and it's been awesome.
That's great. I saw something about you guys, you're working with the, well, this is going to spoil a question for later, but I saw something recently. You're working with the 4 Storytellers, or you guys have a show, or you have something going on right now?
Yeah, so the Storytellers is a group that was formed by the artist John Burton. He lived in Carmel, California, and through various different paths, 4 younger artists, me included, all kind of met John, and he became kind of like a mentor and instructor to each of us individually. And then he was like, hey, I need to introduce you guys all to each other, and you need to get together and do something. And he was just really enthusiastic about it, and kind of got us all on a call, got us all to know each other, and then was like, okay, you guys have to do something amazing. And then that enthusiasm just rolled into our group, and we just kind of became what we call ourselves, the Storytellers, because he wanted us to pick a name for ourselves and to sound really cool. So Storytellers is pretty cool. So that's how we all met, was through John Burton. And yeah, so I'm a part of that group. And right now we're working on launching a show in the next couple days of desert paintings from a trip we did to Cedar City a couple weeks ago. So that's been pretty fun. Yeah.
That sounds really cool. I was going to ask you, because I've been seeing a lot about it on Instagram at the time of the recording. I didn't know if you guys were still on the trip, or if you'd just gotten back. I was like, wow, is she just going to come out from the trail, and be like, all right, FaceTiming us from the some canyon somewhere. So
yeah, I know. It's so confusing, because you can post things on Instagram, later on. Yeah. And I was teaching a workshop yesterday, and this lady was like, so were you in Southern Utah yesterday? And I was like, no, I was there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm no, I've been back for a while. It's just I posted, so now everyone thinks I'm down there. Nice. It's you can travel the world on Instagram, I guess, if you just post correctly. You're like, oh wow, now she's in a different country.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, that transition is perfectly into one of our questions, which is, how does being a member of the 4 Storytellers inform the work that you do now?
So the Storytellers is, I think, one of the greatest things about having the Storytellers is just having aged and like-minded artists who are all kind of going through a similar thing, and being able to like talk to each other and gain knowledge from each other and grow together in a more like a more expedited way. So we're growing just a lot faster, because what's happening is like one of us will hear something interesting, or we'll find like a podcast, or we'll find a new artist, and we can message each other and be like, hey, check this guy out. And then like all of us are like, oh, well, look at that. And then we can pick that apart. And then we also will do critiques of each other's work, which we did like a 5-hour critique last week in preparation for this show, which was really long. And I mean, it's long, but it's so fun because we end up just like goofing off for a lot of it and stuff. And like we're doing this Southern Utah show, and one of the artists had this painting, and he was like, guys, I'm kind of struggling with this. And then we were like, okay, well, what if like you did this and this, and we'll do like a paint over and get an idea. And then all of a sudden it was like, what if you put a cowboy in it? And then like we all started like putting cowboys in like paintings. And I was like, okay, we're gonna have to do another show, guys, in like 4 months where we do all these paintings again, but all of them have cowboys in them.
It's just the same painting, just there's a cowboy somewhere. Where's the cowboy?
Yeah.
That'd be great. It's like the
cowboy.
Yeah. Well, it's like in concept art, there's the trope of like the stick salesman, like the random guy that's holding like a staff, you know, somewhere in the foreground for scale. It's like, you know, the cowboy. So that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think this is a group that you would have formed on your own eventually without the help of your mentor, John? Or do you think that it's something that you would have, you know, because it's like you said, it's an expedited thing. So it's something that, you know, you have 4 sets of eyes right now, and four sets of Instagram reach online. You know, you probably all follow the same artists, but you've got 4 different ways of finding all these things. So I'm just curious to know, do you think you would have eventually in your art career sought that out, or do you think it was really something that was kind of an unexpected blessing?
I think that I have sought out similar things, and maybe would have sought out something, but probably not with the exact 3 artists. And something I have actually a hard time with is I'll like start a group or something, and then it's like, well, we have to like, what if we invite this person and this person? It's just hard because you have so many friends and so many people and artists that you love connecting with, that for me, it's been nice to have the Storytellers just to limit it down, just to have someone who said like, let's just make a youth 4 and just be like, and that's going to be it. And that's really helpful, because like I've done like book clubs and things over the last couple of years for like Edgar Payne composition and landscape painting, and like George Carlson's landscape painting, and those, it's like hard for me to say no to people, because it's like, but then you get on a huge Zoom call for a book club meeting, and you end up like 3 hours later and you're all still talking about clouds and how to paint clouds, and it's like, okay guys, we really need to stop. Like so it's like, it's hard to like limit a group down. So I think with the Storytellers, I probably would have had something similar just happen, but I don't think it would be as it wouldn't have the longevity the Storytellers has had, because it probably would have ended after just a show, and it probably would have gotten a little too big as well, because I just like to invite too many people to the party.
No, that's great. I remember I was talking to Daniel Keys at a workshop, and he was talking about the Young Guns, his group of guys that goes out, you know, and he said they get emails and stuff all the time, like, hey, can we come on this trip? Do you guys do another trip? And he said, you don't understand. If you come, then it's not going to be what you think it is, because then it won't be us. Like he was like, so he's like, I'm not saying you can't come. I'm just saying, find your own group that then you can form, because then it'll be special as this is to us. It'll be that special to you. So that is cool that John was able to kind of limit you guys down to be like, all right, you guys form a culture. You guys do this. So that is cool.
Yeah. The Young Guns is funny. I know like they were painting in West Yellowstone once when I was there on vacation. And I texted Kenneth the artist, and I was like, hey, can I like come paint with you guys? And he was like, oh, we just left. And I was like, oh, dang. And then I was thinking like, I can't go paint with the Young Guns. I'm a girl. It's like, that doesn't fit in.
You'd have been fine.
That's great. Yeah.
I'm going to have to make like a whole different group, like the young, I don't know, Young Buns.
The Young Buns.
That's awesome.
That's great. The rival group. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Charity Anderson and I actually like talked about that once. We were like, but then there were only two of us. So we're like, we got to find some young female artists, landscape painters.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's hilarious. Well, I wanted to ask you, when you go out on those trips, those plein air painting trips, whether it be by yourself or with other people, what are the things that you get from those plein airs that then you bring back into the studio with you? Like, what does plein air painting mean to you as a landscape painter?
Well, plein air painting is just like, it's the best. It's the best part of the job.
I agree.
So for me, plein air painting is like this way to like reconnect and fall in love with like the world around us, and just like realize how beautiful it is, the variety there is in the world, and just like tap into that. And you can't really grasp everything, but you just tap into like those beautiful subtleties and little things about a specific place, and you just try and capture those as quickly as you can with the light and the mood, and try and capture that feeling and energy and bring it back in the studio, and then paint a studio painting from that. I think what happens a lot of times, like people ask if I work from photos, and I do work from photos, but like my favorite things to work, I don't work from photos often, because mostly what I'm working from is my plein air paintings. Because with my plein air paintings, it's like that's a moment that's captured. It's as if you were painting like a portrait of someone, and instead of like just taking the photo of the person and like kind of, one photo of a person smiling, instead you have them come and model and pose and try different lighting situations and talk to that person and get to know them. So it's kind of just a way of getting out and knowing nature and knowing a place. And then when you bring that into the studio and create a studio painting from those like memories and moments, it brings like all of that life and everything in with it, instead of just a photo that like maybe you found online somewhere or something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
It takes it takes a special personality, and you've got to have a lot of developed skill to be able to get to that point where you said, oh, it's just so much fun, because I've been plein air painting and it is very hard. And so I need to find that Zen place. I don't know if you have any tips for getting to that point where you're like, no, I'm just capturing what's here right now. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, a game changer is like when I go out play. A lot of times people, when they set up a canvas on an easel or tripod or pochade box or whatever, they're like, okay, I'm going to paint this scene and it's going to be beautiful. And I think like once you get that out of your head, just be like, I'm going to paint a scene and it might not be beautiful, and I'm just going to paint and try. Then once that's like gone, then you have a lot more freedom to explore and try new things. So I actually paint on paper mostly when I paint outside plein air painting. And I just have like a book. It's like a spiral bound book of like this paper that I like to paint on. And I'll just like set it up and paint like 2 quick studies, and then flip the page over and paint another few quick studies. And what's happening there is like, instead of my brain thinking I need to finish this painting out and make sure this is a finished like panel, because I spent like, $5 on this nice panel, I have to finish it, make sure it's good so I can sell it. Instead, all I'm doing is gathering information and notes, and I'm never going to sell those because I can create some amazing studio paintings from that information. So I never sell them. And in that way, it kind of gives you this freedom of like, I'm not worried about completing something perfect. I'm just here to like take notes and gather information. So
that's really helpful.
Yeah, that is. I'm curious what the, and you can, maybe this is like dipping a little bit too much into your sentient course, which you can also talk about, but like,
yeah, we want to hear about that.
What are the challenges that come with taking a plein air painting to a studio painting? Like you have that kind of source of inspiration, and then what are the challenges that come afterwards when you're back in the studio?
I think the biggest challenge is that you don't have the scene in front of you anymore. You're back in the studio, and it's easy to take something that's like a small plein air painting, because usually you don't go very big with a plein air painting, and you bring it in to do a studio piece, and you think, okay, I want to make this bigger, and you start copying it, and it's like copying stroke for stroke, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I have, for every 1 stroke, I have like 20 strokes that I have to do, and there's just a lack of information there because the scene's not in front of you anymore. So it's good to take pictures of the scenes where you are plein air painting for that reason. But even then, like, you hike up to an amazing mountain lake and you paint it, and then you go home and you're looking at photos, and photos flatten everything. So you're like, wait, I can't tell, like, was that rock slide coming in front of this rock slide? Or like, I'm saying that because I'm working on a mountain painting right now, and I'm like, crap, I got to hike back up there this summer. I don't remember what was happening. Didn't take good enough pictures. But really, like, I'll go on Google Earth sometimes and like zoom down on top of places I've painted and be like, what the heck was happening with the mountain? You know, like, where were the cliffs overlapping? Because sometimes it just flattens out in a photo, and then you come in the studio and you're like, I have to give the idea of depth and form to my viewer, and this has to feel real. And right now, like with the small study I have, I just haven't captured enough of that information. So it's that combination and that fight to make sure that, like, as you're going big, you're putting the right amount of detail in that's going to help your viewer read it correctly. So I think that's the biggest problem.
Oh, that's really cool. I mean, it's really cool to hear that, like, thought process just kind of fleshed out, because I think that is a big challenge. Sometimes you have to go from small to big, and like you said, if I go stroke for stroke, it's just going to be small again. So what resources do you have? I know you have one sentient course at least, or maybe more. I forgot to look that up. I was on your website, but I didn't go look you up on Sentient. I apologize.
Yeah, so right now I just have one sentient course up. It's a plein air painting course, which is fun. And it starts pretty basic, like simple. Like, I give people just like starting from the beginning supplies, and just like, this is the type of brush you use. And I even go into like, this is why you need this brush. Cause I think a lot of times with courses I've taken, it's like, here's your supplies. And then you don't really learn like, what's the difference with those supplies and what do they do when you actually are using them. So I go through like all my brushes and stuff, which are all from Treco. And they actually have a brush set as well on Treco that's plein air painting. It's just 3 brushes, because that's all you need when you go out plein air painting. You don't need to try and carry out a bunch of stuff that's really heavy and like be picking through like all these different brushes for intricate things, because all you're doing is gathering information and notes. So you really don't need more than like 3 brushes. So there's that. And then I work up from there, just like starting a basic painting and how to create like a nice composition, and then working in through plein air painting. And then I actually end with like kind of the beginning of bringing a plein air painting into the studio and how to make that transition work. So I actually talk about that a little bit as well in my sentient course. But
very cool. Very cool.
Good to hear. Well, I am really excited to talk about this next question, because my favorite paintings that I have seen of yours are your tomb, like the empty tomb scenes that you do. So pretty. Like, there's one, there's probably 3 where like the pinks just pop and there's so much light in it, and I'm like, oh. So I've never seen it in person, but just from the little Instagram thumbnail, it's really pretty. So you do a lot of Easter pieces, and you also do a lot of nativity pieces, and you're part of something called the Nativity Show, I think. Can you talk a little bit about that and like what that sort of religious content means to you?
Hey, it's David. I wanted to take a quick second to remind you guys about Vision X Live, a 3-day virtual art conference that brings the world's top artists together to share our vision of the future through a series of live presentations, demos, Q&As, and more. Visit visionxlive.com to learn about the conference. We are excited to attend Vision X Live, and if you are thinking about going, please let us know, and we will talk to our friends over at Sentient Academy to see if we can't help you out. Send us a message on social media. Let us know, I'm interested in Vision X Live, and we'll see what we can do to get you guys signed up and registered. It's coming July 16th through the 18th, so be sure to sign up soon to reserve your spot. It's going to be a great time. Ellie is going to be presenting there. One of our recent guests, Michael Malm, is going to be there, and so you do not want to miss this, and we will see you at Vision X Live.
Yeah, so the Nativity Show, I started the Nativity Show, actually.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Guys, this is an example of me just like being like, I want to do something with friends, and then inviting like all these people to do it. And now it's like, we did the Easter show like off of with that same kind of group of artists and included a few more. And it's gotten to a point where all these people want to do it. So now I've like got a team of friends, and we're like, okay, we have to like start telling people they can't be in the show. Cause like, anyway, So now it's like turned into a thing. So I guess I'm like have to do it for the rest of my life.
Do it.
It was just like
we are here for it.
it was just gonna be like a fun show with friends, and now it's like turned into this whole thing. So, but yeah, I just one day was like, I really want to do, I want to do some nativity artwork, some like artwork, because every time like Christmas time and stuff, getting around the holidays, I always just and Easter, I always just want to like pull in and do a few like religious paintings. It is like a little different than what I normally do, so it's kind of refreshing in that way as well. And just a great way to like think about the time of year. And so I was like, I want to do this show, and started inviting friends and things, and then got a few other people to help, and it just like came together really nicely, and was really impressed with like all the work and stuff. So it's been fun to do that, and they're excited to work on it again this year and get another one going. But that's where those two came from. And the reason I wanted to start them was just to be able to like have a place to put these religious works, because as a landscape painter, I've got galleries in my Instagram and things, but sometimes it's like you want everything to flow and like be consistent on like your Instagram, so you kind of need something to like back it up. And then galleries a lot of times don't really want religious work, so I just kind of made a little thing for myself so that I could actually be able to do that kind of work and help my friends get it out there as well, which is fun.
That's really fun, because the one thing that I really appreciate about it is that the work, especially that you do for the show, looks like it's almost done from life. Like it's not your normal nativity art where it's very rendered, you know, like it has a really great from life feel. Even your scene of like the angels coming to the shepherds, it's loose, it's fun, it's fresh. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, it looks like she was there like that night with like her book light, you know, and she was like, oh, look, a couple passing by the road. I'm just gonna put them in there like the cowboy in the foreground. So it's just it was really cool and refreshing to scroll through your feed and see that. So thank you for taking the initiative to do that with friends. I think some of the coolest thing, I wouldn't be surprised if like Steve Jobs was like, yeah, that was something I was trying to do with friends, and I ended up having to do it till I died, you know? So.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you something about that. You paint landscapes so much, and with religious art, it's really up to our imagination because we weren't there. We just have these written descriptions, right? But there's something about the pieces that I've seen of yours. You have that landscape background and even that illustration background from college that really grounds them, but you're still putting your imagination and your creativity into them. And I didn't know if you have noticed anything that you've learned, you know, when you're just painting an actual scene that exists that translates over to painting a religious scene that you just have a description of and you're translating to an image, or if anything that you know of that helps you when you're going through that process.
So for me, I think like when it comes to it, so I think you hit it on the head with like when you said illustration, like the illustration background. So for these scenes, they're very illustrative in my approach because I obviously am not there. And I can't have the perfect light. And even if which I have been to Jerusalem, which was really great. I got lots of really awesome pictures there for reference and things. But even if I am in Jerusalem or in Israel, the landscape and things have changed just like they have everywhere else in the world with buildings and different things in the way. So you do have to edit all of that out and take that out when you're there in person. But I was able to go there and paint in Jerusalem for like probably 5 days, which was really great. Picked up some nice color notes and things, which is really important. So in a way, it's like plein air painting to studio. It's like that same process where I go out and I take these like notes of color and just like light and like the foliage, like taking pictures. Like, guys, I didn't know there were poppies in Jerusalem. Maybe there weren't back in like Christ's time. I don't know, maybe they're invasive, but there are like these red poppies, and I put them in a lot of my Easter tomb paintings because I think like symbolically and like color wise, they're just really beautiful and vibrant. And so I like love putting those in. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't like gone and, you know, taken pictures and been able to just like gather information. So it's the same process with a plein air painting to a studio painting. It's just like gathering as much information as you can and then coming back in and doing it. But instead of doing a studio painting, I'm doing something that's illustrative. So I'm just gathering all of that information and coming into the studio and then recomposing in the studio and thinking about just like the story and how it would be for me if I was in that situation. So for the recent tomb piece that I did, that was the larger one from this past Easter show, it was a 12 by 24. And that one, I actually painted these steps, these like stone steps in the Garden of Gethsemane when I was in Jerusalem. And I incorporated that painting and that idea into the piece that I did for this Easter show. So it's got the steps moving up on the right side, and then you kind of approach the tomb. And I just wanted to show like this idea of the viewer to the viewer of like, you know, these steps and this path that like you walk up to get to the tomb. So that was something that I like an example of information in different like paintings and things I had done that I pulled in and then used to create that painting. But awesome. I love painting the religious stuff. It's so fun. You paint a landscape painting and people are like, oh, that's really beautiful. And if it's somewhere they've been, they're like, oh, I know where that is. It's lovely. And then you paint a religious piece and all of a sudden someone messages you and is like, let me tell you this really hard thing that I was going through, and I saw your piece and it inspired me and made me feel better. I'm just like, oh man, like, like it's hard to beat those, like, those moments. And I'm a sucker for them because sometimes people will be like, will you paint me one of those? This is what I'm going through and this is what it means to me. And I'll just be like, okay, I'll paint you a small study similar to the original. But like, it's just cool. People just have a deeper connection, more interesting experiences with those. So
that's lovely. Yeah. Well, Mark, she kind of answered one. We always ask our listeners that you shared it on your story if they have a question for you. And we got a couple responses. And I think this one is probably the best one to kind of wrap up the interview with. And it's very straightforward. They just asked who inspired you to become an artist. I know you said at the very beginning that you've been painting since you were younger. So I don't know if there was a point in time or a person that you can say, this is, you know, why I started to paint or why I became an artist.
Oh, that's hard. You know, my grandpa actually is a painter, more of like a hobbyist landscape painter, but he's a painter. And then his grandma or his mom and dad were both painters, landscape painters. And then his grandpa was also a landscape painter. So I kind of had this like this whole like family tree at my back, just kind of like supporting me in being an artist, and like family members supporting me in being an artist and like being creative, especially my parents. So they're all just like inspirations to me, just like trying to keep me going. And it's funny because I think it took me a long time to just be like, I am going to be a landscape painter, just because I was like, everyone else in my past did it. I can't be the one that just follows in their footsteps and becomes a landscape painter just because they all did. But I guess it's just in my blood. I couldn't get it out of me. So I'm a landscape painter.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. Where can people find you on the internet and on Instagram? Share all that, and your sentient course. Tell us again about that. Remind us.
Okay, so my on my website is just artellie.com, so ELLIE, and then my Instagram is Ellie Wilson Art, I think. I don't know. I really should have that memorized.
Yes, it is. I have it here in my notes.
Yes, it's Ellie Wilson Art. So there's that. And then for On Sentient, my Sentient course is just plein air painting with Ellie Wilson, I think is what it's called. You can find me on all three of those.
We are super grateful to Ellie for joining us on the podcast this week. It was a really fun conversation. You can visit artellie.com to find her artwork and to see all of the different things that she offers on there. And then you can also follow her on Instagram at Ellie Wilson Art, and you can stay updated, see stuff about the Nativity and the Easter show that she talked about in the episode, and see all the wonderful things that she has on Instagram.
You can also follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, or SoundCloud even for more episodes like this one. And leave us a comment or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or subscribe to us, like us, whatever, all the buttons. Click all of them if you can, and that lets the algorithm know that you enjoyed this. And then if you enjoyed it, feel free to share it with a friend that you think might benefit from what Ellie had to say about her process of painting.
You can follow us on Instagram at Destination Arete, A-R-E-T-E. You can follow us on Facebook, other outlets, Twitter, no Twitter. What do we think?
Twitter. They can follow us there.
You can follow us there. Why not? Let's do Twitter. And on those sites, you can see we have information about community activities and upcoming Arete projects. We put up quotes from the episode to give you a little sneak peek of what's coming out. And so we'll be back in 2 weeks with another interview, and we can't wait to see you then.